Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster, the show on the Nerd Party network in which we talk about all things nerdy. I guess that seems kind of redundant, but whatever. It's you know what it is.
It's especially nerdy today.
Yeah, it's especially nerdy today because we've got Darren Moser here. Am I right?
Yes.
And Matt Hansen.
Right.
Yes, here to talk about the end of Marvel Phase 2.
Yeah, and I am Mike Schindler from Great Shot Kid, and we are going to be talking about Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man.
Yep, we are continuing to count down to Avengers Infinity War, which is now moved up in the schedule, coming at the end of this next month.
Could Marvel have just asked us first? I mean, they're throwing the filibuster schedule all out of whack. I think that is more important than the entire world getting the movie a week early. But that's just me.
That damned Kevin Feige, he forgot to clear it with us.
That was the first thing I thought of when I saw this, was all the podcasters with their intricate, release schedules all messed up because of a 1 week difference.
That's okay.
Look,
we'll make it work.
Iron Man doesn't care. He doesn't.
No. I mean, the same thing happened with movies in the real world. Like Avengers moved up, and then Rampage moved up, and then something else moved somewhere else. It's, there's that domino.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, is that as soon as Avengers moved up, all these other movies that thought it had more time were all scrambling for new release dates.
Right, because nobody wants to go head-to-head with it, because it's what everyone's going to watch that weekend. I mean, we all know this.
I mean, they're already projecting a $215 million opening weekend, and that may or may not go up.
Yep. We shall see. All right. So, let's not get ahead of ourselves with Avengers 3. Let's talk about Avengers 2. Electric Boogaloo. Age of Ultron. So, all right. Darren, you're the robot guy. You want to give a synopsis of this thing?
Sure. So, Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, more like the Saturday afternoon of Age of Ultron, but, came out in 2015, and it was, like you said, rounding out the end of Phase 2, which would end that year. Tony Stark, in all of his wisdom, accesses the Mind Stone, which has been inside Loki's scepter the entire time. And it is a advanced kind of computer intelligence that he imprints his Ultron protocols on. It does not go well as often for Mr. Stark, and Ultron is born, taking over his Iron Legion of, pseudo Iron Man suits. You have a lot going on in Sokovia that's getting laid down. You have a lot of fallout from the previous film with Captain America, Winter Soldier. But at the end of the day, the Avengers take a hit, and they only kind of rally at the very end to stop Ultron, and we are given the Vision, who will come to be very important in later films.
I was going to say, we get a couple of new members this film.
Yeah, that's true. We get the Annex building off in the middle of North Washington, or North New York State. And you have introductions of the Maximoff twins with the Scarlet Witch and, I was going to say Turbo, but that's not his name.
Quicksilver.
It's Quicksilver. But you get, I think off the bat, most people don't necessarily consider this the best Avengers movie, but on watching it last night, my first impression, or I guess my overall impression, was they do a lot of character moments. Like this time at the house, at the farmhouse, is important because you do get, a lot of these people are now working together, and how is, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has always been about what if this was real? How would the world react to these people? How would these people react to this situation? And like I said before, they take a hit. They everything does not go perfectly well. Even their victory at the end is through the means of mass destruction. So Tony Stark's got a lot to answer for. Will he? Time will tell.
Yeah. So, Matt, what did you think about this movie?
So, I mean, I guess we should talk about what we felt when we first saw it versus how it fits in now. When I first saw it, I was there at midnight. I was so excited. There's actually audio evidence because Age of Ultron was the first big Marvel movie that came out post the founding of the Nerd Party. So, like, if you listen back to those episodes from 2014, 2015, you can hear me talk about how excited I was for this film. But I was there at midnight. I went in knowing that, you know, it was like at a 70-something on Rotten Tomatoes and people were having issues with it. I went in and I realized it wasn't a perfect film, but I still had fun with it. I think for me, this film, I'm not saying it's good, it's fantastic and that there's no flaws in it, but for me, seeing how this film has eventually fit into the larger narrative, which I know is kind of a cop-out excuse, but it's made it better for me. Just to see how the because this you wouldn't like, you may not get it from this film, but this film does have a lot of fallout with a lot of the Phase 3 films.
It does set up a lot that the problem is it doesn't have a ton of payoff because it's the setup movie.
Right.
It's really the setup for Phase 3, which is its burden to bear, and I think it loses a lot in pacing because of that. But
yes.
But we're now seeing, you know, the vision paying off. And I mean, everyone was like, Thor's, you know, vision in the pool, and that's the first time we see the Infinity Stones, like, actually as Infinity Stones. And I remember, in the time when it came out and everyone was talking about it, you know, it took a hit. It just like like the Avengers, you know, Age of Ultron took a hit for the team, but as you say, looking at it now in its piece within the end of Phase 2, it does its job pretty well.
Well, I mean, like, for movies that are more well-liked than this one, like, Civil War doesn't work without this movie. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I guess my thinking, though, is, like, the first Avengers movie was really the culmination of everything that had come before, right?
Yeah, it was the climax of Phase 1.
Yeah.
And it makes sense in a lot of ways because it's all of these little pieces and then they're coming together to make this larger thing, and it's, you know, all meta in that way and everything like that. And it's kind of perfect in that regard. You know, with Avengers 2, it's like and maybe this is just people's expectations being wrong, although I think that they're skewed by the way that this franchise is structured, but you would think like Avengers 2 is going to be the big thing again, right? You know, whereas like what's going on in Winter Soldier and stuff like that is much more significant in pretty much every way. When you get to Age of Ultron, you're kind of like, oh, that's it. I mean, I guess maybe expectations were unreasonable, you know, that sort of thing. But there's also this thing that happened, which is a problem that, you know, the franchise has had to deal with in recent years just because of the nature of things. But we all know what's coming next, right? Because they've planned these movies like, you know, however many years out. And we see what the release schedule is. And everyone was looking to the next March when Civil War would be released. And that's what everyone was really looking forward to. Everyone knew everything about that. And Age of Ultron, I remember this feeling going into the theater. Like, Age of Ultron really just felt like kind of treading water until we get to the main event, which is
Civil War.
Civil War. So, you know, the anticipation wasn't nearly as high as it, for me as it was for the first Avengers movie or Civil War or Infinity War. And I would say that the finished product sort of aligned with my expectations in a lot of ways because of that. I maintain that there has not been a bad Marvel Cinematic Universe movie yet, but this one is very, very close to the bottom for me.
I don't know if I would say it was close to the bottom, but like I said, I realized that this is a flawed film. What I don't agree with was like some of the fallout that came out of this. Like this was one of the worst superhero films ever made, and then somehow this was Joss Whedon's fall from grace. You know, the man has his own personal problems, but like there's ever since Ultron, there seems to be like this revisionist history to say that this guy never made anything good. And the first Avengers, I think, is a blatant contradiction of that. But even this, I'm like, this is not terrible. It's not incompetent.
No. I would say this is a much better movie than Much Ado About Nothing.
That's not too hard. Well, and the storyline, I mean, I'm not a comic reader, but I have seen a lot of like the cartoons, especially in the 90s and aughts. And so I really enjoyed a lot of the cartoons that went through the Ultron story, and that's usually centered around Hank Pym. Hank Pym creates Ultron, and right. I kind of like that a little better than Tony Stark. It's kind of like, I mean, Tony Stark is the golden boy, and it's like oh, we need a tech genius to do it. Let's have Tony Stark do it, you know, and it does feed into his later, you know, issues.
Technically, Stark and Banner do it, but mostly Stark.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, Banner wouldn't have done it if Stark hadn't pushed him to do it.
Right.
But overall, I mean, Ultron himself is a pretty decent villain. I mean, he's intelligent. He's a little big for his britches as far as like thinking he's infallible. Like he doesn't ever seem afraid. Or
I mean, but at the same time, that's one of the things for me that it's kind of fun about this film is that you don't hire James Spader to play not cocky.
Right. You know, James Spader was a perfect cast as his voice and mannerisms. I mean, just that quiet, like sinister, gravelly voice, and you're just like, okay, this is not gonna go well.
Not to mention the fact that, you know, Spader and Downey in a lot of ways seem sort of like intertwined in terms of their careers and stuff like that, just from having sort of like similar images and everything coming up and having similar acting styles and everything. And since, you know, Ultron is supposed to be sort of like a dark reflection of Tony Stark, I mean, casting Spader in that role is kind of perfect, you know?
Right.
Yeah, because Spader's kind of having that resurgence now with like the Blacklist and stuff like that. Like he's kind of rising back up. It just is like Robert Downey. I was going to say Tony Stark, but Robert Downey Jr. You know is now this on top film star.
I know. I remember back in the days when he was. I just remember him as the guy who went to jail all the time.
Yeah, he was like 50 pounds soaking wet of nothing, and yeah. But yeah, no, James Spader was really good. I mean, we, like you said, we get a lot of new characters in this one. You get the Vision. I mean, let's talk about. Do you guys want to talk about like favorite scenes? Because there are some good scenes and moments.
No, there's good stuff here.
Lines.
I think the most of this, like the action's fun, but I think you hit the nail on the head, Darren. You watch Age of Ultron for the character moments, and honestly, for me. I liked him in the first one, but the best thing that came out of Age of Ultron, the character that I think it serviced the most is Hawkeye. Hawkeye got a lot better after Age of Ultron.
Well, he got an actual backstory and character. Like he's literally just a SHIELD agent before, and now he feels like a fleshed out Avenger.
Yeah, and that was really cool. And, you know, seeing, like, Linda Cardellini in the movie and everything was cool, too. I remember, like it was, like, 2 weeks before the movie came out or something, there was some press release, and they're like, Linda Cardellini and Julie Delpy are going to be in the movie.
Just randomly.
And it's like, wait, what? You know, and I'm like, oh, please let Julie Delpy be Captain Marvel. Come on. That didn't happen. She's in, like, 2 shots, but that's okay. Whatever.
Well, she's a little, you know, not that she's ancient, but she's a little bit older for... Captain
she could
Marvel.
pull it off. She's Julie Delpy.
Well, and we get such great we get such great lines as like language, you know, but that language bit between Tony Stark and Captain America. I mean, I think the best scene is that you have the build up is, or I guess it's the payoff scene where the Vision picks up Mjolnir and. Everyone's just like, okay, we can trust this guy now, like that, because you had all that build up and set up that we didn't know was build up and set up in like the party scene where they're trying to lift it, and
that's a great scene,
and it moves like a tiny bit for Steve Rogers, and the look on Thor's face, he's like, oh dang, okay, no, it's good, it's not moving, okay. I mean that scene in itself is amazing, but then you have that payoff of he effortlessly picks it up, and everyone's just stunned, and they're like, oh, okay, and that was perfect because they had every right to be suspicious. I mean, this is the child of Ultron, basically, literally with the Mind Stone in his forehead. I mean, you don't know what he's going to do, and and we're barely seeing his power set. I mean, he almost was overpowered in the next one in like Civil War. Like, really, Vision probably could have taken out everybody if he really wanted to. He's very powerful.
Well, everyone except maybe Scarlet Witch, who's one of the other new characters in this. And I mean, I know she gets deeper stuff in Civil War than she does here, but I remember this was the first time, other than I think in the lead up to this movie, I rented and watched. God, I can never remember the name of it. Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. Quadruple M. I watched that movie with Elizabeth Olsen because I had never seen her in anything before, and then watching her in this, I mean, you could argue how much there was to her character, but I was instantly drawn to her. And Wanda Maximoff, I think, has become one of my favorite female characters in the MCU, and it starts right here.
Yeah.
I really
they do a lot for her in Civil War and Winter Soldier, or not Winter Soldier, but in
looks like Infinity War.
Yeah, and her internal conflict of being a metahuman, that's very difficult.
You want to talk about good scenes? I like the scene with her where she recounts how her parents died, and I also like the scene. I think one of the best scenes in the movie is her, her pep talk with Hawkeye in the middle of the final battle. I just love that.
I'm a guy with arrows. I shoot arrows, and there's robots flying. Like, none of this makes sense. But
no, but the whole thing is like, you stay in here, you're good. I'll send your brother to come pick you up. But if you step out that door, you're an Avenger. And then she does, and she has that great hero moment. I love those moments with her.
Yeah, she's one of the better characters for sure. I like her a lot, and Elizabeth Olsen is great. There's another movie that she's in called Silent House.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a pretty good little horror movie, which is made to look like it's all done in one shot, and that's pretty cool. So, yeah. So, any final thoughts on Age of Ultron?
The only thing that didn't quite work for me until maybe recently, and it's not because of this movie, it was because of Thor Ragnarok, ironically, was the whole, I wasn't a huge fan of the Bruce Banner, Natasha Romanoff romance. I just didn't see it. I knew they were friends, I knew they were colleagues, and I knew that she was the one who went to go get him in the first Avengers and had that moment with him when he hulked out in the first Avengers, but that never spelled out romance to me. But, I mean, it's okay. It works for this film, but the joke that it sets up for Thor Ragnarok was even better. I love the fact that the lullaby comes back in a very, very screwy way is awesome, so I'll forgive it just for that.
Yeah, you get a lot of Hulk dynamic moments. I mean, and he heads off on his, Quinjet and apparently gets vortex sucked or whatever into, Thor Ragnarok. But I mean, they were wise to remove him from the equation for Civil War because,
him and Thor.
Yeah, they're two big players. But yeah, you get a lot of the internal turmoil of Bruce Banner, because I mean, the only other time we really see the Hulk though is in, he's prevalent in Avengers, but since then, we had Iron Man, he's not in that. He had Dark World, Thor, he's not in that.
Well, Bruce Banner was at the very end of Iron Man, but not the Hulk.
Right. Oh yeah, that's true. But I mean, overall, we've had 4 movies and not really any Hulk, because he already had his origin, movie way back in number 2.
And I would argue so far, even in Thor Ragnarok, he works better in these team-up movies.
Oh, yeah. Thor, I don't know if we need another single Thor, or sorry, I mean Hulk. But a single Hulk movie, yeah, he's best when he's paired with someone, whether it's Black Widow or, Thor. I mean, it's a buddy movie. That's what Ragnarok is, and it works so well in that regard. But yeah, no, You get a lot of new characters. Like I said, you get the movement to the upstate facility, and it starts to feel like, oh yeah, they're going to be more Avengers. There's going to be like the B team that's starting to come up, because eventually we're going to have some A team people leave. I mean, we're not at this point. We were only halfway, and we're not there yet. But now with Infinity War, we're getting there.
Right. No, and I did like the fact that there was by the end of Ultron there was a new team. It was,
Yeah.
Cap, Widow, Falcon, War Machine, Scarlet Witch, Vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which could all, I mean, they are all B players, but they could hold their own.
Yeah, I like that too. The idea that, it's a rotating crew in a sense and everything like that. People come and go, and that's how it is. And I'm curious to see what the quote-unquote Avengers will be at the end of, what the official roster will be at the end of Infinity War or whatever.
Well, it's going to be cool to see who's going to be considered an Avenger, because technically there are none right now after post-Civil War.
That's true. Well, and I also, as one last note on Ultron, I liked what they did with Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. being what it was really meant to be, of this, not necessarily peacekeeping, but just emergency. They are the Thunderbirds. They are the emergency response worldwide team, and the way they help, Sokovia, it works really well.
It works for their character. That was one of the things that always kind of not bothered me, but like, I was so in love with Winter Soldier, as was the rest of the world, it seemed. But like at the end of that, like Fury burns everything. He becomes a ghost, a shadow. But we just kept this huge helicarrier and all these personnel just in case. It was. I mean,
it did feel like they were a little like short-staffed or like bare bones. But yeah, it's like, oh, pulled it out of mothballs. Where exactly was this saved? Because it's a helicarrier,
right?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that S.H.I.E.L.D. keeps secret, where you're like, how is this a thing? And I think you just kind of have to go with it.
Well, I mean, he must have gotten tired of the sunglasses, because he burns his eye patch at the end of Winter Soldier, and then he shows up in Ultron and he's got the patch back.
Yeah, well, I can understand not wanting to wear sunglasses
it's his look
all the time.
He knows it works for him.
But, it's important to note we haven't seen him since. Don't know when we're going to see him again, I guess, in Captain Marvel. But that's next confirmed showing of Nick Fury.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't show up in Infinity War, to be honest.
They just haven't publicized it.
Yeah.
Because he's not on the poster. I mean, there's a few people not on the poster.
He's not credited.
Well, he is more of the background. I mean, there's so many characters in that movie, so I don't begrudge them for not having Nick Fury for 3 seconds.
Right.
Which is interesting, because, like, I don't know. I mean, this is a thing that I like to do with all movies, where it's like, who is the primary character? Who is,
right,
the number one main character? And sometimes, you can't do it. I mean, in these big ensemble things, and with, like, Avengers, for example, it's supposed to be a billion characters coming together. But if you sit down and track the story, it's like, whose story is it? If you had to narrow it down to one person. And for the first one, I would say it was Nick Fury. For the second one, I think it's Tony Stark, but...
So the first one, you mean Marvel The Avengers?
Yeah. Which is, I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a thing. But whatever.
I'd say, I know what you mean, though. It's hard with the ensemble films. You can kind of look at who has the most development or who impacts that particular plot the most. Like, yeah, it's definitely... Tony does a lot in Ultron, but you also have a lot of banter, in that one as well. So but I think that's one of the reasons that Winter Soldier works so good, is it's not an Avengers movie. It's obviously a Captain America movie, and because he is the one that has investment in Bucky, and that's the one. And Winter Soldier is where we are introduced to. No, it's Civil War. We're introduced to Black Panther, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, which I liked. I liked that. I mean, that's a little out of our purview, but I liked that introduction as opposed to...
Yeah, but even that,
I know... ease in.
I know people will like to... We're not talking about Civil War, but I know people like to call that one Avengers 2.5, but even that one I would say is mostly Cap's movie. Like, he's the driving force behind most of the action.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is, like, listening to Joss Whedon talk about the first Avengers movie, the way that it was originally constructed was primarily going to be from Cap's point of view, because he was sort of like the outsider who was, in a sense, the perspective of the audience.
And that makes sense because his movie, too, was the lead-in to the first Avengers.
But he said that in the editing that changed and it became what it is. But I think that's kind of interesting, so whatever.
But, so this was the big bombastic, it wasn't in a finale like the first one was. It was kind of like a huge mythology episode. But having watched this in 2015, I think it's great as we transition over. I think it's awesome, and I think it was the right move to have Ant-Man come after this, because we needed to take a breather before things got crazy again in Civil War.
Because right before you had Guardians of the Galaxy, which was, no one expected that to be like what it was and to do so well and to be so fun that it was like, that was Marvel saying, hey, don't forget, we can have fun with these movies, and Ant-Man does that as well.
Yeah, I just love how this was still the time when when is Marvel going to make their first bomb movie? And originally it was Guardians, and that proved everyone wrong. And so this year it was supposed to be Ant-Man was going to be all the totally the bomb because of the whole Edgar Wright thing. And
remember I was I was watching like a YouTube clip, and they're like, don't forget, this was an official Marvel trailer-ish announcement to promote Ant-Man, was Ant-Man and Pym, galloping on their thighs and just saying ants over and over. Like, that was literally, I remember watching that and being like, what is going on? What, did someone at Marvel hit their head? But it worked.
Yeah, I guess transitioning to Ant-Man now, I do want to say, not to wax my own car, but when that summer started and everyone's like, Age of Ultron, and, we'll go see Ant-Man 2, I was right there from the beginning saying, I predict that Ant-Man will be substantially better than Age of Ultron. And, I don't know, in my personal opinion, I was right, because the reason for that, the reason why I was so excited about this movie was because of Peyton Reed. As much as I love Edgar Wright, and as much as I think that his departure from this movie is probably the single biggest what if, that has ever been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for sure, and probably ever will be. And as much as I'd like to see that movie, Peyton Reed is an amazing director, and the idea that he, is working in the Marvel universe just excites me so much, and it's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to Ant-Man and the Wasp so much, more than Infinity War, sorry everybody, because now he gets to actually start from scratch and make his Ant-Man movie, But yeah, Matt, what did you think about Ant-Man?
I remember being hopeful for Ant-Man, because there was all the this is supposed to be Marvel's first bomb, and look how they just, I didn't think they screwed up, but look how they just screwed up with Age of Ultron. So no hope for Ant-Man, right? We're all looking forward to Batman v Superman
next
year.
And it's Ant-Man. Who know? If you want to talk about obscure minor characters, I remember, people forget that before Iron Man was not a huge in comics world he was, but if you didn't read comics, it was like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, that was it.
The X-Men.
The X-Men. And it's like Iron Man, you're going to launch on Iron Man, the drunk billionaire, or millionaire now billionaire, and same thing with Ant-Man. He's so minor, but they just did such a good job with it.
Yeah, but I held out hope, because no, I take it almost none of us who knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were before that first movie, and look how well that turned out.
Yeah.
So I was hopeful, and then when I saw it, it was just like I said, it was, it was a nice, refreshing palate cleanser. Not that I hated Ultron, I really enjoyed myself with Ultron, but it was a nice, no pun intended, smaller scale movie. to just kind of relax and have fun. And I remember, like, after this one came out, people were eased up a little bit on the Marvel is over train, and they were able to, like, kind of have fun with it. And yeah, it was, I just, it's still a fun little movie to watch, thoroughly enjoyable.
What do you think about it, Darren?
Oh, I love Ant-Man. It's one of those immediate purchases. It's so fun. And again, it's interesting how Marvel does humor, because I mean, it's still got a lot of action. It still has a lot of high stakes, but it knows when to take a breath and to be like, "Welcome to Baskin Robbins." I mean, that's just. And it's like, or like Baskin Robbins always finds out. I mean, it's these little lines are so good.
A lot of that is Paul Rudd, who I was a huge fan of before this movie. So I think he's perfect for this role.
They're really good with their casting. I feel like they have not miscast very little in all of the MCU. But yeah, you get the funny moments. You get, I mean, just that opening scene with young Howard Stark and Hank Pym.
Peggy Carter.
Dang, the CGI on that is good, because he looks like it was shot in the 80s or whenever.
He looks like he just walked off the set of Wall Street.
He does. Like, where's his giant phone? I mean, that would have been great if he had picked up a giant phone. But yeah, no, it's a good story. I mean, my namesake, Darren Cross, the evil villain. I mean, I'm always interested when there's a Darren in anywhere. Usually we're not the greatest of characters, but I'll take what we can get.
You're either the villain, or you're the dope who's married to the magic witch.
Yeah, it's Bewitched. Don't I know it? But no, and then you get such, like, I know we only got a couple weeks, but I would love for Michael Pena to have an official released trailer, and all it is a trailer for Infinity War, where he's just explaining how we got here.
Well, supposedly that did happen for last Comic-Con when they announced that Michelle Pfeiffer was going to be the Wasp, is that they did have this trailer of Michael Pena explaining the entire MCU to her up to that point. So I hope maybe Marvel releases that.
I hope they do, because that would be hilarious. Where he's like, okay, so first there was this guy, and he was Iron Man, but it wasn't really iron. It was like some sort of like fancy-ass metal. And then he's and he just goes through the entire thing.
I mean, humor is subjective, but I think his stories and his setups are some of the best moments in this film. I really love that character.
Well, and the method they do of he's voiceovering it, but the characters are lip syncing his VO, and they got like the little mannerisms, and it's like, of course people don't really talk like that, but that's what's so funny about the flashback.
That's how you get your Stan Lee cameo, by the way, is him lip syncing over Stan Lee.
He's like, for real.
Yeah, I think the humor in this works well too, and I think that, all of Ant-Man, I think Ant-Man's existence and everything goes back to Edgar Wright. I mean, from what it sounds like, he was developing this movie before there was a Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he was
2006.
Yeah, and he was doing Ant-Man because he thought the character was cool or whatever, and it seems like a perfect fit for Wright. And he doesn't care about doing someone who's like super high profile. He just wants to do someone who gels with his style, and that having that Wright Cornish script to begin with, and having all the work that Wright did on it. I mean, we've seen Wright with humor. We've seen Wright with action, and he's very, very good at both, and he's very, very good at combining the two, and it just makes sense that this would work, and not to mention, with the casting, like Paul Rudd and Michael Douglas and everybody. So all of that is great, but then when you bring on, Adam McKay and Paul Rudd to rewrite the script, and Peyton Reed, who is, I mean, we knew that he was a comic genius from his work on Bring It On, which is, a masterpiece and all that good stuff. But one of the things which it just always stuck in my head was right after Bring It On came out, Peyton Reed had been hired to direct the Fantastic Four movie, which eventually was made, and everyone hated. But Reed's take on it.
Sorry, you had to be a
was-
little more specific. Which Fantastic Four movie?
Fan Four Stick.
Oh, okay, got it.
The one, yes, not the one, not Fan Four Stick, not the Josh Trank one.
He did.
He was going to do the
did
Tim
the
Story
2000
one.
the 2005, the Chris Evans one.
Yeah, not the Roger Corman one, but the one after
the Steve Rogers before he was Steve Rogers.
Right. So that one, but his take on it was going to be set it in the 60s, basically make the Fantastic Four like Beatles-like celebrities.
So kind of like
Right.
like an X-Men First Class kind of vibe.
Because that's one of the differences
No.
of the Fantastic Four is they are a public figure.
They're a public figure, so he was going to do it like in the style of A Hard Day's Night.
Oh, okay.
Which
That would have
to
been fun.
me, especially, yeah, I mean, and he's talked about how big of a comic fan he is and everything, and then you look at his second movie, Down with Love, which is done in that, but
yeah.
with like
It's
romantic comedy, like 60s
Day.
romantic comedies and everything, instead of, and that I've always sort of just, I mean, that bums me out more than Edgar Wright not doing Ant-Man. So the idea that, he's finally getting to make a Marvel, comic book movie, it just made me so happy, and he knocked it out of the park. I mean, when Age of Ultron was coming out, I did a thing with my family, like my parents and aunts and uncles and stuff, where I showed them. We watched all the MCU movies leading up to Age of Ultron, and my dad, who's a notoriously tough critic when it comes to movies, he's just kind of like, whatever, these are fine, I don't care, whatever, blah. And then we went to see Ant-Man, and he's like, this is the best one so far, easily. And I think that a lot of the reason for that is because it is manageable. You don't need to see any of the other ones in order to get this, even though it does tie in and everything like that. And it's really just about, developing these characters and really getting into just a few people instead of what we had just come off of with Age of Ultron, where it's like, I don't, there's too many, and now a witch, and what are her powers, and I can't keep track of this, So it was a nice palate cleanser for sure, and
It was a breath. It was the breath we needed.
We catch our breath before things get crazy again in Civil War, which is teased at the end of this film. And I remember being very excited for it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think was awesome about this film, and one of the things that gets me most excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp, is I really liked, we're talking about the cast, I really liked Evangeline Lilly in this film, and I can't wait to see what she does suited up, because she was great just in this film. So when she gets in with the action, I can't wait to see what that's like.
Yeah, she's really good for sure, and it is kind of cool to see her, and I love the fact that, in talking about the new movie, the fact that it is called Ant-Man and the Wasp, like one of the things that they've stressed is like, this is not Ant-Man 2, it is Ant-Man and the Wasp. They are together, they're on equal footing. It's an expansion
so time
of
has
what was done
passed.
before.
I mean, even from the trailer, it may even look like she's on superior footing.
Well, yeah, because she pretty much was in the first movie. The only reason why she didn't get the suit was because her dad was... Her. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that's pretty...
That just
pretty
makes
cool.
that makes me laugh. That trailer, just like you gave her wings and blasters. So I guess you didn't have that technology available for me. No, I did. I did.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, and remember, like, Ant-Man is also a fugitive at this point. He's been broken out of the raft. The last time we saw him, Captain America.
Well, he was kind of like he was, quote unquote, a fugitive in the first one.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I mean, he's a superhero.
He's
fugitive.
an ex-con. Now he's a fugitive. So like he's right back where he started.
Yeah. And I don't really know what the plot is supposed to be of Ant-Man and the Wasp, besides them just doing their thing.
I have a feeling that we're gonna get a second trailer with Infinity War that'll tell us more of the plot.
Yeah.
Right, because this is the first one after Infinity War later this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see how it works, because if the movie's coming after Infinity War, I want to know if it's like Black Panther, where it's set like just after Civil War, or whether it's set like right before Infinity War. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and how much time is going to pass between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Untitled number 4? Because I remember way back when when they did their first like Phase 4 or Phase 3 announcement, you had Infinity War 1 and 2, and that's kind of what's being done, but not called that. So I don't know how that's all going to lay out.
I think they should call it Avengers Infinity 4.
And put a 4 and have it replace a letter, because everybody loves that.
They could do that.
Yeah, because you want, like I said, you want to follow in Fan 4 sticks.
You could just make it 4 Avengers.
Oh God!
There you go.
4 fast, 4 Avengers.
And then everyone's like, "Wait, why are there more than 4 Avengers? I thought there was only going to be 4 Avengers in this movie."
Maybe there will only be 4 Avengers
by the time.
But yeah, no, it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think that there was a little bit of growing pains here at the end of Phase 2, but we were able to close it down with a nice little movie. And I think ever since Ultron, this is when Feige finally ditched the Marvel Creative Committee. He was finally able to kick him out. And Phase 3 is when he's exclusively controlling it, and he reports directly to Disney. So I think he learns from the mistakes at the end of here, and just that's why Phase 3 has been better, I think.
Oh yeah, Phase 3 was just like boom, 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 boom. I mean, Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, and Black Panther. Like, those are all great.
Black Panther, which is now the highest grossing domestic superhero movie.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hearing those listed, I think I'd have to give Phase 2 the upper hand. I mean, I really love Civil War and...
Phase 3 or Phase 2?
No, Phase 2. I really love Civil War and Ragnarok, but the other ones, I'm just like, they're good, I don't know. But
Winter Soldier is hard to top. I mean, that did something different that no one expected, and
like
was
the
done
Winter
really
Soldier,
well.
The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy 1-2 punch. I mean, come on.
Oh no, 2014 was a great year for Marvel. I'm just saying that ever since Ultron, they haven't had like a major like Thor 2 or Ultron stumble.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see what happens in a couple weeks with Infinity War.
I know. I have my fingers crossed. I'm excited and nervous, and it's I have my tickets for that opening night fan event, so I can see it at 6 p.m. the day before.
Nice.
And
I'm in Central Time, so I can go to the 7 o'clock show and still beat you guys on the West Coast. So
just stay off the chat, okay? Just stay off the chat. One last thing I wanted to say with Ant-Man, though, is I did like their promotional art, like the way they did the posters, where it was like a whole size poster with teeny bitty Ant-Man in the middle.
Do you like for Ant-Man and the Wasp, it's the whole size poster with 2 little dots now?
Yeah, exactly. It's very clever. Like, Marvel's very smart. They have some good people on their teams making good decisions.
I forgot. I remember that, and I remember the other posters where it was like Ant-Man running on Cap's shield or on,
right. It's like, he's been here the entire time. You just didn't see him because he's so tiny.
And that was also, of course, a good way of saying, like, no,
this
guys, this is part of it too. Really, we know you haven't heard of him, but it's part of it. Go see it.
And he had a good scene with him going to the abandoned warehouse in upstate New York, and he's like, "This is not an abandoned warehouse; it's now Avengers HQ." And he squares off with Falcon. And
although
that was a cool little scene. Yeah,
but I get the distinct impression that scene was the straw that broke the camel's back with Edgar Wright. I mean, I don't know, but I get that impression, where it's like, we need to make it Avengers. Come on, guys.
Can I just say though, it's not to diss on Falcon, but it's a good thing it was Falcon and not like Scarlet Witch who would have twisted him into
Avengers.
a pretzel.
Yeah. It's like, let's see, who could we pair him up with that he could actually defeat? Falcon, okay.
And I do like how that pays off next time in Civil War, because if he can mess with the Falcon suit, he messes with Iron Man's suit.
Right, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, but this was fun. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was like Ant-Man level fun. So... Of course, this series is going to continue from now until Infinity War comes out. But in the meantime, Matt, where can people find you?
People can find me at mhansen0207, Hansen. Yeah, mainly my thing over the next month is probably going to be talking about how excited I am for Infinity War. And, once the reviews start coming out, you'll see me disappear because I don't want any spoilers.
Cool. What about you, Darren? Where can people find you?
They can find me on the Nerd Party talking about Star Trek on Ceti Alpha 3, and they can also find me online under username Dr. Sci-Fi, both my website, Twitter, and Instagram.
Cool. You can find me right here on the Nerd Party doing a show called Great Shot Kid, where we talk about... we don't really know at this point. We're kind of just all over the place. It was like Star Wars creators. Now it's just kind of like whatever we feel like, which is probably for the best. You can also find me on a brand new podcast called Film Damage, where we talk about movies from the perspective of the booth and really get into some projectionist stuff. So that's always fun. And you can find us over at filmdamagepod.com. And you can find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this week. That's it for Phase 2. And some other people will be back next week to talk about Phase 3 and the Captain America with the Civil War.
Yep. Until that time, Avengers disassemble.
No disassemble, Avengers.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.